Welcome everyone on the studio stage today. Tobias and I will be here for the whole of the day. And as Maya and Stefan said earlier, if you want to submit a lightning talk, please come to me and tell me which topic you will want to present tomorrow morning, I guess. And that's about it. Let's start with our first talk here, or wait, because I see a couple of people rushing in. So take a seat, we have some time. There are some seats in the first row, just left, and every speaker loves it to see your faces interested in the first row. So what's the topic of the first talk? I remember Karsten was here last year telling us about updating things, how, when, and why. And I think we all saw just now that we obviously will run into something when we update, and it just doesn't work. And I think most of you will always have heard the sentence, it doesn't work. And you know, okay, what doesn't work? How do I fix it? Or run into something that just boggle your mind. So I'm very curious what Karsten will tell us about his dubious topics he encountered and how he did it, fix it. So welcome, Karsten.
Yeah, hello from my side. Awesome. I just like, okay, we could do a small round of 5 people sitting in a circle and discussing things, but it turned out to be almost sold out. That's great. Yeah, updating. I wonder why did I spend 45 minutes on that topic last year when Sebastian just did it in 10 to 15, but maybe there's more to just doing it and whatever. Anyway, so I don't know. I don't know every one of you. I know some, and you might not know me. So a few words on my background. I've been using PHP for 25 years, I realized in the days leading to the conference. And at that point, I didn't even realize that PHP was still such a young language when I started using it, because probably 5 years seemed old to the younger me, whatever. And I've also been involved with what now is Neos for 20 years, which is at the same time amazing and frightening. But what hasn't changed in all these years is that the community in this project and around Neos and Flow is still amazing me with the creativity and the endurance also that the community shows is really just awesome. And the company I'm currently working at, I co-founded that, and that is, again, 10 years ago, which passed by like, you know, do you remember that sketch about Dilbert loving deadlines because they make this whooshing sound when they go by? That's that feeling. So this is the abstract. And I mean, over those years, you see a lot of projects coming by, and you know, you do updates and you help people with issues. And the target group really is ranging from back-end developers digging deep into some core features or add-ons to the editor that just, you know, can't publish something. So it's really a wide range of topics that we've seen over those years. And you will see some examples of things that you might not want to do, regardless of your role. So we'll look at some things that you might want to do to address your own issues. So maybe you are in the sad situation that you have to fix the bugs you created yourself, which can be sometimes even harder than fixing other people's bugs. How to identify issues, how to find what's actually the issue at hand, and then also make the life of maybe your fellow developers easier by doing things or not doing things. So that's kind of what to expect. So I know some people, and I wonder if some of those that I know will learn something new, but then again, you never know. Who of you has been using Neos for more than a year? Okay, more than 2 years? More than 4 years? Okay, so how many conferences have you been to? More than 4? Okay, more than 2? Okay, and the others are here for the first time. Or more. No, well, whatever. Okay, so it's a mixture. It's a mixture of things. That's good. So yeah, let's see how many of the things you maybe have seen already at some point, or maybe you have seen. You think you have seen that slide, but it's maybe just because there's certain things, certain categories of bugs and issues that happen over and over again in kind of a very similar reincarnations. I don't know, maybe, it depends on how fast I'm riding through this, but let's try maybe an experiment. If you have something at your to-do list currently, a bug, an issue, or maybe even something that you've fixed and it was just so mind-bogglingly awesome to solve that riddle that you might want to tell about it, think about it and hand it in as a question, so maybe we can have 2 or 3 really interesting stories or questions from your side at the end to look at. So let's see. The first thing that I want to remind you of is question the expertise of whomever you're asking about things that don't work. Because I like to see myself as the expert that can surely solve the issue that you have easily, but that might not be true. And I might give you advice that is well-intended, but doesn't really work for you or solve your problem. Or maybe you have some certain background information that makes you think, well, yeah, that's nice. I would rather not try that, but then again, well, they charge money for that, so maybe I should just follow their advice. I don't know. And then you do it, and it turns out to be a waste of time. That can happen. So trust your own thoughts. Don't underestimate the power of your own knowledge, ever. Because experts are everywhere, and at times I'm in that role of an expert, and I'm not always right. I'm proud to say that most of the time it helps what we do, but sometimes we need to take a detour as well, and the first idea that we have is not the one leading to the solution. So trust your own thoughts, and there's kind of this list of universal truth, maybe. I don't know if maybe it's far-fetched to call them like that, but keep your own brain moving. Don't rely on things just being told a solution and just doing that, like, I don't know, essential copy and paste from Stack Overflow or whatever. It's not good for your brain to shut down and just do what you're told. So think about the stuff that you hear. Judge it based on your own experience. And then never believe anyone telling you that this is the solution and you must do it like this, other way it's going to break down, because there's no silver bullet. It always depends on what you're doing. So try to work with the people you are helping, or the people that are helping you. Collaboration always gets you further than just doing your own thing or doing their thing. Work together. And that doesn't only apply to people, it also applies, of course, to the software you're using, to the APIs you're connecting to. And this is one of the older cases. If you have been around for long enough, you might have seen that example, but it's just too good to miss it. Don't work against the framework. This example is from customer code. By the way, if any of you ever thinks, oh, he's picking at me for, if you think this could have been my code or whatever, maybe, but don't be offended. It's not just you. We've all been there. So we've seen this code in a customer project at some point. And the first thing you notice is there's a hard-coded instantiation of the SMTP transport for Swift mailer. And that's kind of interesting. And then it registers a logging plugin, and then it sends a message. And that's, I didn't count the lines, but it's a lot of code when all you would need is this. And that's not because there was a stupid developer or someone that just copied from somewhere something, but there was probably code written by someone that looked at the SwiftMailer documentation and found their examples of how to use SwiftMailer. And maybe you can turn the blame totally around to the people that maybe did not ideally write documentation for the near SwiftMailer package and tell you that you can drop all that because, you know, auto configuration, dependency injection, blah, 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 blah. You just need to create your message and send it. And then, of course, if you need that much logging that you want to log everything in a specific transport, maybe you should, you know, invest in monitoring the state of your system in some other place and just believe that this is working. But that's a different thing. So always try to use the systems that you use in the way they are intended to be used, because that reduces the amount of code, and that, in turn, reduces the amount of support needed to keep that code going, because what we started out at that point was finding why changing certain parameters for the transport did not reflect in the system. So we tried to use a different transport, and we couldn't. But the settings were injected, and if you changed the SMTP settings, that had an effect, but not changing the transport, because it was hard-coded. So that was kind of, you know, you set out from a completely different task and end up improving the code base. So this is, leads me to the point of asking the right questions. Because usually when people ask you something, you have an immediate reaction of, I think I have an idea what this could be. So you probably need to, did you try doing this and that? But you don't know everything. You, most of the time, don't even know enough to find a solution already. So this was a ticket that came into our help desk. It's in German, but no, this is a ticket that I wrote to a customer because I had seen that in the logs there was an error during import. And it had an error saying, well, this long title can't be inserted into the database. So this, you know, these, I don't know how many words, was to be imported as a title. So I thought, oh, well, I'm the proactive support guy. I write to them that maybe you want to change the state of your product database that we're importing from, because this title is clearly too long. I don't think that's supposed to be that way. And I was like, yeah, I found an issue, and it wasn't my fault, and it was the customer's fault. But I proactively hinted at them to, you know, so they can fix it. So this is something to be proud of, right? And then I thought, well, but I don't know, maybe it's something else at fault. So I looked again, and yeah, it wasn't that this title was too long. It was that the system tried to import the description into the title. Why that? Because the order of fields in the file that we are importing had changed, but no one had told us to adjust the configuration. So yeah, I had actually found an issue, and it really was the customer's fault, but my first assumption on the cause of this was completely wrong. So never assume that you know enough, but be proactive. Like, what I try to do is help the customer before that actually becomes a problem. But if they had been proactive and had informed us about the changes, well, we could have avoided that error in the first place and adjust the configuration. So inform your team about changes. If you're working in a company, talk to each other about things that you plan, talk about things you did, talk about things you observe that, you know, don't seem right. And inform your collaborators. So if you're in an agency, hopefully your customer tells you what they want and what they need and what they do change. And you hopefully inform, I don't know, your hosting company or whomever you are collaborating with about upcoming changes or things that you did, because it makes life easier for everyone. Then use current versions of all the things. This is kind of the why and when should I update stuff that I did last year. And it's like, who's using Neos 4.3 still? That's that's like asking who. Well, no, I won't do that. Anyway, so we were tasked with, we created a package for a customer, and they asked us to add a new feature to that package. And I was like, okay, yeah, we can do that. So I looked up the API changes in the third-party system that it connects to, and I looked at what we'd need to do to implement that feature, and I implemented that feature, and I said, well, you can try this new release that I tagged, and it should do all the things. Except that, oh man, yeah, that was that project. Oh, maybe they updated. And sure enough, they answered, and that's nice, and I tried it locally and it works, but we need it for that customer system, and that's still running Neos 4.3. And mind you, this was this year. This was in 2025. So I assumed I knew the setting, because if someone asks you for a new feature, you base it on what is current, right? Never assume you know the things, the environment you're working with. Always ask the right questions. And then this is a slide from a presentation that I gave in 2018. This is really, you see, this was April 18, and it was about upgrading to PHP 7. I urged people to do PHP 7 upgrades because, back then, 7.0 was already in security-only fixes. So who knows where PHP 7 currently is? Well, this was yesterday, the supported versions. 7 is still there, which is probably encouraging if you think back to that 4.3 project, because what version of Neos 4.3, what PHP version do you need to run Neos 4.3? It's still PHP 7. And that has been out of maintenance for years now. So I don't know if this customer bought the extended support that you can buy from Zend, but I doubt it because that's ridiculously expensive, which is probably fair given that it's ridiculous to run PHP 7 still. Anyway, keep your things upgraded and at the same time still ask the right questions, right? So. Okay, let's look at another dubious code example. Handling persistent resources. It's not the fun part of working with Flow and Neos to handle persistent resources, but still, we gave it a lot of thought in the past. How do you abstract resources that are usually just files on disk so that you can use them and work with them without knowing where they are exactly? Because, cloud and things, you might not have them on your disk. So at some point, we found this code. And it's doing all kinds of weird stuff. It's supposed to import something. Again, for CSV files seems still to be all the rage when it comes to handling data transfer. Anyway, so this is finding it's creating a document that is something entirely different, but then it gets a resource from that document and gets the SHA-1 and then uses that SHA-1 to create a file path on disk to read that file. And when would that break? I don't know, imagine you change the switch for storing resources from hashed resource path to non-hashed, or you just use cloud storage. I don't know. So it could be this simple, because there's a create temporary local copy function. So again, know your framework, use the possibilities it has, and that is especially true now when you transition to Neos 9. Never assume that things work the same way as they did before. They might. That might be the solution that you have been using might be there to stay, or it could be that you need to adjust, and it still works, but it's just a compatibility layer, and you never know when that's going to be gone. So learn the stuff. And whenever you learn stuff, it makes it easier to give the right answers, of course. Another example, this one was an actual client problem coming in. So yeah, there's this, we have these product teasers where you put in an SKU, and well, the new products don't show up. And then actually, trying to be helpful, 2 links to products, links to the shop of that customer. Except that on that shop page, I cannot see which SKU they tried to insert. So it would have been nice to see where on the page they tried to insert that so I could actually check out an example. So that leads me to tell me what went wrong, and please tell me exactly what went wrong. I mean, you've all been there probably opening up an issue, be it with your IT department or on GitHub, or maybe, I don't know, you complain to your landlord that the electricity always goes out at night. Tell them exactly what went wrong, right? So be precise. Because it doesn't work is a bad description. And if you hadn't had the abstract, just the title, it doesn't work, you could have assumed that the website's broken. And I tried to fill in the title, and out of frustration, just typed in, it doesn't work. Right? And that's about the amount of information that you get. So always share what you did. The real cause of the issue is easier found when you know, I tried this. It happened at that point on the website. Here's the URL. If you click that link, I'm expecting this to happen, but it does that, and I see this error message, etc., etc. In this case, by the way, the CSV file where they changed the order of fields, this time they had changed the URL to download it from and hadn't told us. So the new products weren't being imported. So also tell me exactly where it went wrong. So give me an example URL, give me a line of code, give me a class file, tell me the name of the log file, whatever, and also tell me when it went wrong. I don't know how that's for you, but a lot of times you see error reports, and they say, yeah, I did this and that happened, and I mean, if you get editor bug reports, you always get this, I made a screenshot, and then there's this little red box, and it cuts off the most interesting part. You can't even see the exception trace code message. And you're like, oh, whatever, I don't know. And then maybe I can find something in the logs. But when did this happen? And more often than not, it would have been really helpful if whoever observed a bug would have noted down the date and time of it happening, because then it would have been a way easier to find a log message relating to that error, or maybe an exception trace file, or a spike in metrics of some server system, if you knew when to look. Okay, so what went wrong? Where did you see it? When did it happen? Now, sometimes, even when you tell a lot of the story, it can still lead you into the wrong direction. This was a nice one that came in from a customer, and it was addressed to Robert, and it said, well, the staging system is going down whenever we enable custom daemons on the server. So, but it's the same code as on the integration system. It's the same code, as far as I can see, but yeah, it's the same code. And you know, the queues are all empty, and you know, we just don't know why is it going down, where's the load coming from. And the first thing, load, okay, so then you start looking at metrics, and then you, I don't know, maybe it's not really the same state of code. Well, yeah, it is, and you start looking and digging. And at some point you realize, oh yeah, the container is dying with an out-of-memory error, and it's getting killed. So it's not the load on the CPU, it's the memory. But yeah, and if you disable the daemons, it works indeed. But there's 33 custom daemon scripts running. Well, I don't know, I could turn them on and off one by one to find the culprit, but that's probably better done by the customer that knows what these scripts are actually doing and which of those might potentially use a lot of memory and so on and so on. In the end, it turned out the system failed because on a third-party server somewhere at, I think it was Amazon, a pub/sub queue was missing. And that what had been configured for the other staging system, but not for this staging system. So that broke. And that probably led to messages being kind of piling up on that server and not being submitted to that queue remotely, and that filled up the memory, and boom, everything died down. So they tried to tell us what they did. They had verified the code base, and they had checked the queues locally are empty initially, and so on. But it's still very important to remember that tell them everything you tried. And if you are the one having to fix something, ask them to tell you everything they tried. Be it an editor that says, well, I clicked there. Okay, what did you do before? What did you do afterwards? Ask them. And if your coworkers tell you, yeah, I tried to debug it, but it still doesn't work, that's not as helpful as, yeah, well, I tried this and I tried that, and I can rule out that this is the cause because, and I even went back 3 commits and it's not there anymore, so, yeah, it must be one of the last 3 commits, and so on. Have them tell you what you tried, or tell them what you already tried. It makes it easier. Then, another nice example, read the error message. The example that I'm going to show is not Neos 9 related because so far Neos 9 doesn't have any errors yet. It's still fresh, but probably you will run into some when upgrading, and it's the more important that you carefully look at what the system is telling you. Like the composer message that poor Tobias had on his try of upgrading the website. I have seen a lot of composer messages telling me what is wrong, and it's very happy throwing 3 screens of error messages at you at the same time, and you have to figure out what's actually going wrong. But it helps to read through all of that, really. So let's look at this. Cannot modify header information. I mean, that's the warning. Cannot modify header. That's actually, whoa, okay. So it's something in what's actually going wrong there. So you maybe Google for cannot add header information, but I mean, actually you already know that some output has been sent already and PHP cannot set a header. But yeah, so then you look more closely and you see, oh, there's some fine print. It's like with a good contract, always read the fine print. There's a creation of a dynamic property. Yeah, I know, this is no longer good style. So you probably, I don't know, see this after updating PHP on your server or whatever, and you wonder why this is happening, and then you look at where does it come from? Guzzle, but I mean, Guzzle is just this, we are using it just like this. There's no property being created there dynamically. What's going wrong? And this was another nice example of a very indirect cause of a bug, because you wonder, if this is Guzzle's fault, how does it not explode into the face of thousands of developers every day? This very minute, this can't be a real issue. And in the end, Guzzle had been fixed, and we could have updated if it weren't for a package that we required that in turn had pinned a dependency to a certain version of Guzzle. And so it couldn't update it. And you run into this issue. So this is really, sometimes you really need to be, maneuvering around a lot until you find the actual cause of an issue. And And then again, a tip on what it helps to find issues is if you have tests, because if you have tests, you see issues come up immediately. But don't just write tests. This is a real example of a project that I once saw, which is, I don't know if you like, what is this testing exactly? This should be, I don't know, this should be a test maybe in some hardcore foundational test suite in the PHP source code, but this should not be in your application test. Because if you don't trust PHP to instantiate your objects, well, then I don't know. So if you write tests, write useful tests. Sebastian asked if everyone is using Git. I can always only urge you to use a VCS. It doesn't have to be Git, for heaven's sake. Even if it's still Subversion, but do something. This slide, this exact same slide, is from 2018 again. Version control is not optional. So I had an update request at the end of last year or beginning of this year. I don't remember exactly. So, but it's like maybe half a year ago, where they said, well, we can finally here, upgrade to Neos 8 and also PHP 8, and we are also moving to a different server and so on. And oh, by the way, we have a new repository on GitHub. Yeah, this was one of those projects where where I had created a Git repository in our GitHub organization to track the changes I made to their source code. And whenever I would update something, I would pull the code from the server, commit that, do my changes so that I knew what had actually happened and if I had broken something or not. So they had this new Git repository of their own now, and they even had it single sign-on integrated with their Microsoft Active Directory, whatever thing, and I had to get a new account for it, and I was like, yeah, so they made progress. So I checked out the repository, and I was like, Composer install, no manifest found, what, why? They didn't have Composer lock in their Git repository. They didn't even have Composer manifest itself in the Git repository. That was just on the server, like in the old days. And that leads me to another observation, that they were still developing things on the production server, which is like, how can you even work? Because they had pull requests that had been merged that were missing half of the files that they actually needed, but they would never notice because they were on the live server. The assets for the new updated font awesome, they were all there, but not in the Git repository. So use Git, but then do it right and do not develop on your production server. Actually, Git is distributed. So distribute the experience so you find those issues. I don't know, you're probably doing that all, I hope. And if you don't, or if you know someone that doesn't, then you can nudge them into the right direction. Okay, and then sometimes there's this issue where you go like, I just hope they forget that this ticket is still open. Maybe it just doesn't ever happen again. Because, we have this one task that is going on for ages now, where sometimes when they publish something, the cache isn't cleared, and you see the old content, and we were like, okay, yeah, maybe if we redo the whole foundation and rewrite all that and get rid of this experimental package they used back then and just do it in plain Fusion AFX, and that should surely help, because all the cache configuration seems, no, it doesn't work. It doesn't help. And then we have this one customer where their clients, again, they have this one lady that says, well, the Neos management thing works only when I'm in the kitchen with a laptop. It doesn't work in the living room. So what do you do with those bug reports? Sometimes you just need to take a step back. And that's also what Norman does when he is out of ideas. He takes a shower, because a brain in the shower leads to enlightenment. And that is not just, you probably have all experienced that. Maybe in the shower, the power of the shower is real. And there's even, I mean, this is a real psychological thing, and it's called shower thoughts. And there's people from universities, well-known scientists researching that. And why does it work? Because if you are totally bored, your brain kind of shuts off. You need something that you do, but it doesn't have to consume all of your mental energy. So showering is good because you shave, you wash, you soap, and it's a routine. You do it regularly. You know the order and things the order things are happening in, and at the same time you are kind of sensory. There's a restriction. You don't see too well because there's all this vapor in the air, and also there's this white noise from the running water, and it's very comfortable because it's warm. There's nothing that's really over or underestimating your brain. So that's why shower thoughts work. So if at the end of a day you go like, I really need to solve this, but I'm out of ideas, just take a shower or take a walk, have a rest, have a good night's sleep, come back to it the next day. That will probably help. And I'm not the shower guy. I'm the almost asleep thinker. When I'm like, I need to try that. And then just keep in mind to write it down because I usually forget those things. So I write them down in the evening, and then you can tackle the thing at the next day. Okay, thanks.
So thank you, Karsten. I did find on this slide, I usually take a walk.
Yeah.
That's quite good. Taking a break and also sitting down with your colleagues. I had this, first of all, before you tell me your problem, please breathe. Calm down, you will go there step by step. That's also very helpful.
Start at the start.
Yeah. And we had a question about the importing, and the question was, would it be an idea to validate the format of the file? To not just have to rely on the customer to tell you things.
Yeah, that would have probably been helpful at that case. Then again, it did produce error messages. So, it would have produced validation error messages. The real problem in that case, aside from not being notified that this has been changed, and this is probably also something that is 2 steps before it reaches us, because the editors that complain about this not working are not the people responsible for the product feed, and they couldn't care less about the product feed because that's the shop people. And but actually, if I hadn't seen this by accident, more or less, monitoring is the answer in this case. Have something watch your logs and notify you of a spike in error messages. That's also, data insights is really the thing here. But yeah, if you can, validate your data before you touch it.
And I know that you did some updates to NIOS 9 during our beta processes. Did you encounter some dubious issues in the code you tried to update that you didn't, see for a couple of years because it was running smoothly, and in your update process you found something that was challenging?
Definitely. The first tries of updating were pretty early on at some sprint in Frankfurt. We discussed yesterday if that was 24 or 23.
I think 23.
Yeah, that was my guess, and someone doubted it. So it was 23, probably. It was that long ago. But yeah, we've taken some time. Anyway, so in these first tries, you absolutely expect things to be broken after, doing whatever migration tooling we had in place at that point. And it's more about finding out what you actually need to adjust. But even now, in the last few days, we found issues that were unearthed by NIOS 9 that used to work just fine. And these are probably really hard nuts to crack because the code isn't broken. There's not really an error, because it used to work for years, but now it kind of interacts with the new CR, maybe. That was one case we had, where you couldn't publish because there was things changing in the content, and we were like, why? It's at this point of day, I should be the only one trying to publish something. And it turns out there was some automated thing going on in the background that created changes in a way that now block publishing, because you can't overwrite things anymore. In the past, it would just change this and change this and change this, and if you pressed publish in between, it would change your thing, and it wouldn't be bad. In that case, it could have been, and now it forbids you from doing that. So these are the things that you are probably going to see when you go into the Neos 9 direction and you look at old code that used to work for a long time, and then always go like, okay, this is not broken in itself, but how did the behavior change that might cause this issue? So it's different, and it might not even lead to real error messages in logs. It's just something not being quite right. It's you have to dig into those things to get a feeling for this. And by the way, this is fixed, but this also looks like maybe we should check this next week. So
thank you, Karsten. Maybe someone will tell you how they take a break before solving difficult bugs. And I think Toby has a present for you. So thank you for being here. It's applause. Yeah. You can try to challenge yourself with recreating the wonderful Neos N.
I heard it takes an hour, so it's longer than updating a Neos site.
So maybe you can challenge yourself and try to update it and create this.
Maybe it works as a kind of shower replacement. So maybe you should all get one at the check-in, and then whenever you have a problem to solve, you just glue away a bit on your Neos N. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And Toby, do you know who's next on this stage?
Yes. Can we have the slide?
That's still me. Oh, that's still me.
Karsten. Don't forget to rate the talk in the app. And next up on the studio stage is Dr. Andrea Herrmann with her talk about lightweight requirements engineering for IT projects. So, 12 o'clock here on the studio stage. And on the center stage, Fiach Dylan from 1&1 will talk about elevating code quality and ensuring stability in Neos projects. So enjoy your short break and see you again in a bit.
Sounds like a tough choice. You need to split yourself.
I'm staying here for sure.
Okay. Thanks.